Want to do something fun? Run the bases. Trust me.
When it comes to playing video games, nothing quite provides that sweet dopamine rush better than getting an achievement or a trophy. You know what I'm talking about, that sweet little... Yeah, that. Ever since achievements were introduced to the gaming world on the Xbox 360 back in late 2005, almost every gaming release has arrived accompanied by a trivial list of random challenges that you can complete to get that small dopamine rush. And over the years, achievements in themselves have become a staple of the gaming genre. When done right, they can offer any game a whole bag of replayability and can even push the most casual of players to 100%ing that ridiculous open world RPG that otherwise would have been dropped after the main campaign. When it comes to the Fallout series, there is no shortage of good and bad achievements. I've already covered in full the most rare achievements in the franchise, but today we're going to be diving into the single worst achievement that any of the Fallout games have to offer. And speaking of things to offer, let me offer you the chance to become a certified gamer thanks to today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends is a free-to-play action RPG that is available on both mobile and PC. It already has a trusted fan base of over 80 million players and has an entire arsenal of over 650 completely unique champions. The game is currently being updated every month with more content and more champions, so it always feels like a fresh experience whenever you decide to log in. This month's new update revolves around the Sylvan Watchers, a new faction that's just been added to Raid. They're a mysterious faction of elves, tree spirits, and living rock monsters that will stop at nothing to defend their land and uphold Mother Nature. The sprawling root-like design of their armor and weapons is a pretty neat touch in my opinion, making them visually stand out in a very unique way. And also in the late month of February and early March, Raid is hosting a special Valentine's Day themed adventure with its brand new Raid Love Quests. All you need to do to get involved is to download Raid Shadow Legends today from the link below and copy your player ID and paste it over at raidlovequest.plarium.com. There you can play any of the various Valentine's Day mini games for a chance to win some exclusive Valentine's Day themed Raid champions. Also, you could have a chance to win some Amazon gift cards worth up to $1,000, but we all know you're entering for those Valentine's Day themed champions. And if you're already playing Raid, you're not left out. You can still head over to the link and receive a small Valentine's gift from the folks over at Plarium. So download Raid Shadow Legends today using either the QR code on screen or the link in the description to get yourself a free starter pack worth $35 and to experience all the new events that are happening this month. And thank you again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. So, as you could probably tell by the title and the thumbnail of this video, the achievement in question is obviously that of Benevolent Leader, which in itself currently isn't realistically that hard of an achievement to obtain. But this wasn't the case before the introduction of DLCs. See, on the game's release, Benevolent Leader was notoriously hard to obtain for a whole bucket load of reasons. The achievement itself revolves around the entire settlement system of Fallout 4, which isn't exactly known for being the best. Within the settlement system, you have a whole load of variables at play that you need to maintain and keep on top of. You know, things like food supply, water supply, and defenses and bed count. But the one thing that we need to focus on for the sake of this achievement is that of happiness. In order to get the Benevolent Leader achievement, we need a single settlement with 100% happiness, meaning all settlers within the location need to be entirely content. However, to make things just that little bit harder, I'll be restricting myself to managing a settlement that is filled to the brim with settlers, meaning more mouths to feed, bed, and maintain. I'll be conducting this challenge within Sanctuary with a settler count of 20, seeing just how long this achievement can take, again, without the use of DLC items. So we begin the playthrough like any other. However, this time the intro is actually quite important, as our special stats are vital towards getting a good head start with the ideal settlement in mind. We need 10 charisma, as you can only have 2 settlers for every charisma level, and like I previously mentioned, we want all 20, so we need that stat at 10. It's currently at 9 because we grabbed the special book later on to bump it up to 10. We need 6 intelligence for the science perk, which allows us to build high-tech mods, and more importantly for the sake of this video, higher tech equipment for our settlement. I'll also be playing the game on normal, which isn't really worth mentioning aside from the fact that this build is pretty heavily weighted towards charisma, which doesn't exactly bode well for me when it comes to combat, but we should be able to manage it. As always, we're nuked, we run into Vault 111, we get into a cryo chamber, our wife is shot, and then we get to leave. Once I left Vault 111, I headed straight for the special book to get my charisma up to 10. This special book is inside your home and allows you to increase any of your special stats by 1, which is incredibly useful, and I hope to God no one watching this video is finding this out for the first time. I then did my usual routine for almost any playthrough. I grabbed a bunch of useful items, dashed straight towards Vault 81, and grabbed the Overseer's Guardian and the Destroyer's right leg from the vendor there. The leg piece increases my movement speed by 10%, which is obviously very useful in general, and the Overseer's Guardian is a fully upgraded combat rifle that has the legendary effect of double shot. Hopefully I shouldn't need to explain how overpowered this is, and it will be strong no matter what level you are, so it's pretty good to get early in the game. Now is probably a good time to explain my plan for this achievement and how it all works. The maximum amount of happiness a settlement can have is quite clearly that of 100, but the first 80% of that happiness meter is pretty much determined by survival factors alone. Things like defense, water, food, and sheltered beds. As long as I have 20 defense, 20 water, 20 food, and 20 sheltered beds, one for each of the settlers, I can easily obtain the first 80% of the happiness needed. All very simple so far, but to get that excess of 20 happiness in the settlement, I need to use alternative means to obtain it. Non-survival factors are needed to hit the final threshold of 100. You'd think things like decoration or lighting or the removal of noise pollution would affect the overall happiness of a settler, but this actually has no effect on the happiness meter at all. Instead, we have to rely on various things like shops and dogs, and that's it. Yeah. The only way to increase the happiness of settlers without DLCs is either by utilizing shops inside these settlements or by having pet dogs. Literally the only two options you have. You could also use pet cats and gorillas, but none of these exist in Sanctuary, and without DLC items, they're impossible to obtain for this settlement. You can use Buddy, the robotic drinking companion, to increase the overall happiness of a settlement, but Buddy is a robot, and robots for some reason have a default and static happiness of 50, meaning that Buddy would actually bring down the total percentage of happiness rather than increase it. Okay, easy enough. All we have to do then is simply place down a tier 1 trader for 10 excess happiness and have dog meat present for the other 10. This is pretty simple. That is an excess of 20, which should tally up to a total of 100. Except excess happiness is also divided by the number of settlers, so this excess of 20 happiness is now just 1. We need a total of 400 excess happiness from non-survival functions in the settlement to be able to finally reach that totally reasonable and possible goal of getting Benevolent Leader. So, the first thing we do is head straight to Valentine to clear out Vault 114. This is because the triggermen here use submachine guns, which uses 45 ammo, which is also used by the Overseer's Guardian, my weapon. So Vault 114 is a perfect place to stock up on ammo early on. Also, there's a speech bobblehead here, which will also increase the total amount of caps a vendor has by 100, which is useful for our next step, building a small water empire. Similar to that of my millionaire challenge, I opted to build another purified water empire purely so I could make enough money to buy a ton of resources for building various equipment for my settlement. In order to build any sort of store, you need caps, depending on the tier of the store. For the sake of happiness within my settlement, I would be aiming to build tier 3 food and drink stores, which cost 1500 caps each. This is because the food and drink tier 3 store offers the most happiness at a comfortable excess of 40. Then I went around collecting as many settlements as I could, building recruitment beacons at almost all of them. This is so I can send all the settlers that arrive at these various settlements over to Sanctuary so we can get the settler count up to 20. I did get incredibly lucky with a dog vendor outside of Oberlin Station, but my chat dared me to shoot the guy after buying his dog, thinking it would be appropriate. The dog that I did just buy did not appreciate this. Dog, you're my dog now. Well, shit. However, I did set up a food line from Oberland to Sanctuary, meaning that my food situation was not an issue, because Oberland Station has a healthy amount of food growing here. Also, you can't move the default settlers here from Oberland to Sanctuary, so I just utilized them as a food supply card. Around 3.5 hours in, I had built enough water, food, power, defense, and beds to satisfy the survival aspect of the happiness meter we discussed beforehand. The Sanctuary settlement had 20 people in it, and next up we had to start power leveling. This is because in order to build stores, we need the second tier of the local leader perk, which requires you to be level 14. But we also require the second tier of the cap collector perk, which requires level 20. Also, now is a good time to mention that the happiness meter only goes up every quote-unquote tick. which happens to be every 15-ish minutes. So the happiness of our settlement will only increase every 15 minutes or so, as long as I move to a different cell or area. So every so often, I need to remind myself to enter or leave somewhere new to make sure the game updates the happiness of my settlers, which is actually quite perfect for me because, like I said, I need to power level to level 20, and in the meantime, the game can slowly tick up its correct happiness to level 80. To achieve level 20, I simply did a whole boatload of starter quests, making sure not to touch the Minutemen as their default location is Sanctuary, and it's a little bit preoccupied right now. A good solution to this was doing the 7 to 8 variant quests for Knight Reese over at the Cambridge police station. Also, side note, this guy is the second worst character in the game, right behind Preston Garvey. So eventually, at around 6 hours and 13 minutes, I finally hit level 20 and headed straight towards Sanctuary to start building those stores, where, unfortunately, the settlement was under attack and one of my settlers died.
Sniper monkey.
No!
My money is real, at least. D.
Someone died! If a settler dies, everyone is sad, obviously, and the overall happiness of the settlement suffers because of it. So for a short duration, everyone at Sanctuary was in a state of mourning. However, I took this time to start building up a small vendor empire and started hiring the locals of this small town. Over time, I sold off the purified water I obtained and built myself more and more bars around the settlement. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, we need an excess of 400 happiness, and the best way to obtain this was to build 10 of those tier-free food and drink bars. Like I mentioned, they each offer 40 excess happiness, and this is actually the only way to obtain Benevolent Leader when you have more than one settler in a settlement, which is exactly why this achievement is an absolute joke without DLCs. Obviously, Bethesda did recognize this issue early on, as the DLCs following the game's release seem to contain various methods of fixing the happiness level of a settlement. There is actually a surprisingly high amount of ways to obtain this achievement with DLCs, but as far as base game Fallout 4 goes, this is genuinely the only way to obtain 100% happiness unless you have one settler. If you are lucky and have one settler, you can just stick them with dog meat at Red Rocket Station and then finally get that random dog encounter, which adds up to 20 excess happiness, which again, divided by 1, is enough to reach 100. So anyways, with all 10 bars built, the only thing left to do is wait around, which isn't exactly the most entertaining of events, but out of sight, out of mind. After 3 extra hours of basically just messing around with my chat, I had finally gotten the achievement of Benevolent Leader. It took 10 hours and 21 minutes, but hey, there it is. Any second right now. 3, 2. Let's go! We did it, boys! Benevolent Leader! Woo! Like I mentioned before, this achievement isn't exactly difficult if you have the DLCs or go into the game expecting to get the achievement. But on release, Benevolent Leader was a huge thorn in so many people's sides. If you want to have a little extra salt with your food, go check out some of the early Fallout 4 threads for this achievement. They are filled to the brim with people complaining and theorizing on how to complete this achievement. I mean, even when I was trying to get this achievement on stream, I still had people come into my chat with crazy solutions that made absolutely no sense. Things like cleansing my settlement of synths to make sure none of them were actually robots with a static happiness of 50, or making sure to give my settlers drugs, because apparently some people believe that that helps. In reality, none of these things have an effect, and it all comes down to simply doing the maths and waiting the time. To give you guys a fair comparison, I did this achievement with the DLCs on, and only one settler as part of a test. It took me around 3 hours and 40 minutes, although I did spend a good chunk of that time playing other games, like Call of Duty Zombies, playing VR, and even Terraria, because a majority of this time spent was simply waiting around for the game to tick up that happiness meter, which isn't exactly fun. All in all, Benevolent Leader as it currently stands is a fair and decent achievement, but I like to hope that this video was a time capsule in a way that could help visualize and showcase off the issues that most players dealt with on release with Fallout 4. There seems to be a huge split in opinions when it comes to this achievement, and hopefully this video clears it up. I mean, when you have to have half your settlement working at a bar to achieve a happiness achievement, yeah, something's wrong. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe. It helps me know what content you guys enjoy and lets you know when a video goes live. As always, more videos to come, and I'll see you guys next time.